Once upon a time, there was this brilliant scientist by the name of Giordano Bruno. Bro had a crazy idea, right? Innumerable suns exist. Innumerable Earths revolve around our suns. Living beings inhabit those worlds. Outlandish, right? Everybody knows we're the center of the universe. But Bruno kept going. He wrote extensively on the subject. He is so linked with the concept of a never-ending universe that the infinity symbol itself is oftentimes attributed to him. Of course, that symbol can be found in Persian art, like Greek and Minoan cultures also display the symbol of the infinite as well. However, there's an even greater wealth of knowledge hidden in the endless isness of existence, right? Like the three initiates tell us in the Kabbalion, while all is in the all, it is equally true that the all is in all. This maxim includes aliyah, so let's rock with it and take that journey within it. What up, though? It's your boy Justin, and welcome back to The Mystical Mind State. So today we're taking a look at the unlimited world of the all, and how the infinite universe is one of the few places where science and religion tend to agree, right? More mystically inclined people will take it a step further and see both the external world and their internal ones as equally infinite, but we'll get to that in a second. I believe it was the philosopher Archimedes who is accredited with coining the term infinitas or unbounded, but its roots are much, much older. Mathematicians like John Wallis give numerical meaning to Bruno's infinity symbol and say it's a variation of the Roman numeral for 1,000, and that it simply means many, but that's just Western ignorance, to be honest with you. Like, of course, Giordano Bruno would more than likely agree with this sentiment. It's highly unlikely that he would want his philosophy restricted to mere numbers, as innumerable as they may be. See, Bruno also said, everywhere is one soul, one spirit of the world, wholly in the whole and in every part of it. As we find in our lesser world also, this soul produces all things everywhere, so that for the generation of some, time is not required. If that last bit about time reminds you of the theoretical physicist Carlo Rovelli and his notion of time being an illusion, then hold on, because we're finna go way back into the mysteries of a pre-Socratic Ephesus, right? There was this cat named Heraclitus that lived in like 500 BCE. Anyways, he said, thus it is wisdom to confess that all things are one. All things come out of the one, and one out of all things. Yeah, fragments pretty much reads like an early occult manuscript of the later Hermetic orders, except Heraclitus was self-taught and never attended any of the mystery schools of Alexandria like so many of the later Greek philosophers did. His was a purely mystical outlook that landed him the nickname of the Dark One. You can't make this up. His idea that the entire cosmos was actually made up of the same fiery substance he called the Logos, a sort of cosmic mind and pure idea, was so hated and so loved by so many that 3,000 years later, we can still hear his words in spite of his actual written work being lost to the sands of time. Now, Giordano Bruno saw in the world of matter a similar array of worlds stretching beyond all human conceptions. And just like Heraclitus' philosophy had that tinge of like mystical undertone to it, so too was Bruno, also grounded in his faith, God being the infinite, his holistic view of the universe. Modern Kabbalists will recognize his line of thinking in statements like, God is infinite, so his universe must be too. Thus is the excellence of God magnified, and the greatness of his kingdom made manifest. He is glorified not in one, but in countless suns, not in a single earth, a single world, but in 1,000,000, I say, an infinity of worlds. Oh, what a dulcet blasphemy to his 16th century peers. Nah, for real, Giordano Bruno was savagely beaten and burned at the stake around the year 1600 because he didn't renounce his beliefs. Why? Because the church has martyred free thinkers since they found out free thinkers existed. They hang on every literal letter of scripture that serves in enslaving humanity while refusing to search for the very God they pretend to serve in the world around them. Giordano Bruno didn't do that, though, because he wasn't backwards in his thinking. The all does not fit in a box. God is not describable. How can we describe God when we can't even describe why we're aware of existing? Our consciousness of this whole mess of life and death from one generation to the next has always posed these sorts of questions. Who am I? It's an infinite loop of heavy-hitting philosophies eating their own tails. That Ouroboros prevails again. And this ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail represents the eternal cycle of the cosmos, the transcendence of duality, and the union of opposites. After this symbol emerged from Kemet, it became an important one for alchemists the world over, its circular nature representing the journey of our opus, or our souls, right? The first known appearance of the Ouroboros motif, as we know it today, is the enigmatic Book of the Netherworld. This ancient text was discovered in the tomb of Tutankhamun, and he was the son of Amenhotep IV, who's possibly Moses. I'll definitely jump down that rabbit hole at some point because it's fabulous. All the what ifs tie back into Sumer and a bunch of other really cool stuff that I like. But I digress. The infinity symbol goes back to like the 14th century BCE. That's your takeaway. And it chronicles the god Ra and his union with Osiris and all of this really heavy symbolism about the perfected state of being that lies beyond the world of duality, right? The figure even has a really cryptic title, One Who Hides the Hour. And it's the snake god Mehen, right? Also known as the enveloper. What we're talking about is the beginning and end of time and its circular nature. It's a basic comedic explanation that rivals Ravelli's own. Time being an illusion. The rhythmic is cyclic, even though we insist on experiencing it in a linear fashion. We suffer from past experiences and let them dictate our future actions when the only moment that actually exists is right now. Heraclitus used to remind his students that we will never step in the same river twice. We aren't even the same person we were the first time we stepped in the said river either, because only change is constant, and we're part of that eternally changing, eternally fluid, fiery like soul substance of isness. To physicists, it's space-time. To the woo-woo kids like Amit Goswami, it's consciousness. To the 2nd century alchemist Cleopatra, it was the all. She utilized the Ouroboros in a number of her writings on inner transformation. Her famous line, Hen to Pan, meaning one is the all, is scrolled inside of an Ouroboros in one of her earliest writings. Now, it's so far-fetched to our modern sensibilities to believe that any of these thinkers could possibly bring anything of value to the table today. Like string theory is any different than the aim of those alchemists of old. Now, I'm not talking about those who are attempting transmutation of base metals into gold. Any medical student on the planet can connect those types to the lobbying scientists seeking government grants. I'm talking about those who were seeking liberation from the seemingly dualistic nature of reality by unifying their conscious and their subconscious mind. The ones who taught that the spirit of Mercury was the substance that permeates all matter that one can awaken their awareness to through meditation and study. Those alchemists. You know, the ones who every modern occult lodge pretends to share a lineage with that extends all the way back to Kemet and Hermes Trismegistus and Thoth. At the center of all these ancient mysteries, there lies one truth. That truth is within you and all around you in the living things that exist. There is only one logos, one reason for everything throughout the cosmos, which is the same for all. Out of this one meaning comes all of the symbols and the beliefs and the ideas we find in our collective conscious, or Mercury in alchemical terms, right? And nothing, and I mean nothing, is a complete and independent expression of it. As they say in Sanskrit, pratatya samatpada, everything leans. The visible world of senses is a myth, a tale half true and half false, which embodies the logos, the truth of which is one. One never-ending cycle that lives and dies into itself constantly. So let God be your area of study. Just don't forget you are the subject of sovereignty. Heraclitus would say wisdom is one only. It is willing and unwilling to be called by the name Zen, life, which is Zeus, God. I searched myself, for it is open to all men who know themselves to be wise, but they will not find wisdom by running to the ends of the earth and trusting their eyes and trusting their ears, which are bad witnesses to men, if they have not the souls to understand their language. Nature loves to hide herself in plain sight. She hints of one meaning, under many forms which delude the senses of fools. We must feel our connection to the whole of existence, and that isn't found in our senses. Now let's get even more ironic and end this segment with a quote from one of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. A human being is part of the whole, called the universe by us, a part limited in space and time. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. The delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. Thank you, Albert Einstein. You guys have been great. Until next time, keep breathing in light and living in love.